The story I'm about to share shook me to my core. It made me rethink everything I thought I knew about life and reminded me once again why you can't afford to be too nice to people. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and share your own stories that change the way you see the world. My name is Melissa Johnson. I'm 63 years old, and I've never been the kind of woman who lets people walk all over her. 3 husbands tried. 3 husbands are gone. And trust me, I've never lost a night's sleep over it. People love to gossip. They whisper that I partied too much when I was young. Maybe I did, but here's the truth. I've always lived on my own terms. No one tells me how to act, and no one ever will. I have one son, Jason. He's 35, and he is the single most important person in my life. I raised him by myself, worked 2 jobs to pay for his education, gave him everything I had. I thought we were close. I thought there were no secrets between us. And then, Thursday happened. I was in my office. Yes, I run my own small consulting firm, built it from the ground up, when my friend Diana called. "Melissa, did you see Jason's post on Facebook?" Her voice sounded off. "What post?" "I'm not glued to social media every second. Check it, right now." So I did. I opened Jason's page, and there it was. A photo of my son in a tuxedo, kissing a woman in a white wedding dress. The caption, "Best day of my life, I'm married." I froze. My son, my only son, got married, and I was the last to know. My hands were shaking as I dialed his number. The rings dragged on forever. "Hello?" His voice was guarded. "Jason, it's Mom." I tried to keep my voice steady, but it cracked anyway. "I just saw your post." Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. "Mom, I wanted to tell you." "You wanted to tell me?" The anger hit me like a wave. "Jason, you got married. Married. And I had to find out like some stranger scrolling Facebook? Mom, it's complicated." "Then make it simple. Explain how the son I raised alone, the son I sacrificed everything for, gets married without even inviting his mother." "Mom, please, not now." "Where are you?" I pushed back my chair. "I'm coming over." "We're talking. We're on our honeymoon in Hawaii." Hawaii. Which meant the wedding had been days ago. And all that time, he'd said nothing. "Congratulations," I said, my voice like ice. "I hope you're happy." Clearly, what I think doesn't matter. "Mom, that's not fair." "Then put your wife on the phone." I dragged out the word. "I want to congratulate my daughter-in-law." The one I've never even met. More muffled voices. Then, finally. "Hello?" A young woman. Sweet on the surface, sharp underneath. "Brittany, I assume." I leaned back in my chair. "This is Melissa." Jason's mother. "I know who you are," she said, her tone cold. "Then maybe you can tell me why I wasn't invited to my own son's wedding." And she laughed. She actually laughed. "Well, Mrs. Johnson," she said, sugary but venomous. "From what I've heard, you had plenty of fun in your youth. We wanted our wedding small, only the closest people." I felt my blood boil. This girl, this stranger, was telling me I wasn't good enough for my own son's wedding? "What did you just say?" My voice dropped, quiet, dangerous. "I think you heard me. We didn't want our special day to be compromised. I'm sure you understand. Put Jason back on. Now. Jason's busy. Goodbye, Mrs. Johnson." And she hung up. She actually hung up on me. I sat staring at the phone, my chest burning with rage. But beneath the fury was something deeper, something that cut like a knife. My son, my only child, had shut me out of the most important day of his life. And his wife had the audacity to say I wasn't good enough. I opened Facebook again, scrolling through their wedding photos. Small ceremony, maybe 20 guests, all young faces, none I recognized. Judging by the captions, they were her relatives. And in all of it, there was no place for me. I leaned back, closed my eyes. But instead of crying, I felt something else take over. Cold, unshakable determination. If this girl thought she could start a war, she had no idea who she was dealing with. Because Melissa Johnson is not a woman you humiliate, not even a daughter-in-law, especially not a daughter-in-law. To understand why that girl's words cut me so deeply, you need to know my story, and I'll tell it to you, raw, unfiltered. I grew up in Detroit in the 70s. My father worked in a factory, my mother was a nurse. We were poor, but we were happy, and my mom always told me, Melissa, never let anyone decide who you should be. I was a beautiful young woman. No point pretending otherwise. I knew men noticed me. Long legs, bright smile, confidence to spare. And yes, I dated a lot. At 18, I married Marcus. Handsome guy, worked as a mechanic. 3 months in, he started drinking and raising his hand against me. I didn't stick around, packed my things, and left. The whispers started. Melissa left her husband. Must have been cheating. At 22, I met David. Smart, ambitious, promised me the world. We got married, he got his master's degree, landed a good job, and then he decided his wife should sit quietly at home and play the part of the obedient housewife. Melissa, you're too loud, he'd say. You embarrass me in front of my colleagues with that laugh of yours. I left him too, and the gossip got worse. Second husband. See, she must be the problem. At 25, I had Jason, his father, my third husband, Roger, a good man at heart, but completely irresponsible. Couldn't keep a job longer than 6 months. While I worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table, he sat at home playing video games. By the time Jason was 3, I'd had enough. Roger was out. You're divorcing for the 3rd time, my aunt yelled. What's wrong with you? And you know what was wrong? I refused to live with men who didn't respect me. I wouldn't put up with drinking, control, or laziness. I wanted to be happy. But to people, that wasn't acceptable, especially for a black woman from the working class. I was supposed to endure, to keep the family together, to stay quiet and smile. Instead, I raised my son alone, built a career, and lived life on my own terms. Of course, the rumors never stopped. Melissa's always with some guy. I saw her at a bar with someone. She's been divorced 3 times. What does that tell you? I didn't care. By day, I worked as a manager at an insurance company. By night, as a consultant, saving money, paying for Jason's education, building my business. By 40, I had my own consulting firm. By 50, 2 offices and a team of 12. I was successful, independent, financially secure. But the whispers never went away. In my neighborhood, I was that woman who'd been married 3 times. Too loud. Too wild. You know the irony? Most of the women gossiping about me were stuck in miserable marriages with drunks or cheaters, but they kept the family together. They were respectable. And me? I was free. Jason grew up to be a good man, smart, kind, maybe too kind. I always worried the world would take advantage of that softness. At 25, he brought home his first serious girlfriend. Pretty, sweet, from a good family, everything was fine, until her mother found out who I was. My son won't be seeing yours anymore, she told me over the phone. I don't want my daughter tied to your family. We know about your reputation. Jason was devastated. I wanted to tear that snob apart, but I kept quiet for his sake. After that, he dated other girls, but nothing stuck, until Brittany. He met her 6 months ago, brought her to dinner at my house. The moment I saw her, something in me tightened. She was beautiful, long blonde hair, slim figure, perfect makeup, dressed in clothes far too expensive for a dental clinic receptionist, which Jason said she was. Mrs. Johnson, your house is just lovely, she chirped, looking around. So cozy. Her tone was condescending, as if the home I'd bought with my own money in a good neighborhood wasn't up to her standards. At dinner, she couldn't stop taking photos of the food. Sorry, it's for my followers, she explained. I've got almost 5,000. She talked nonstop about designer brands, fancy restaurants, dream vacations. When Jason stepped out for a minute, I asked, "So, Brittany, tell me about your family." Her face tightened for a split second. My family? Just a normal family. From Ohio. What do your parents do? That's not really interesting. She brushed it off quickly. Oh, did you see the new Gucci collection? After they left, I called Jason. Son, we need to talk about Brittany. Mom, don't start, he snapped, defensive immediately. Jason, I'm your mother. And I can see that this girl, what? Isn't good enough for me? Or isn't good enough for you? His voice was sharp. Mom, I'm 35 years old. I can choose who I'm with. I just want you to be careful. There's something fake about her. Fake? Or is it just that you can't handle the idea that I've found someone who makes me happy? We fought. Really fought. For the first time in years. And after that, I saw him less and less. Brittany always had reasons why they couldn't come. We've got plans. We're exhausted. Maybe next time. 3 months later, I found out they were engaged. 6 months later, married, without me. That's how my so-called reputation came back to haunt me. Only this time, it cost me the chance to be at my only son's wedding. A week passed after that phone call from Hawaii. A week where I tried to come to terms with what had happened. Tried to figure out where I went wrong as a mother. Jason came back from his honeymoon and finally agreed to meet me. We chose a cafe near his office. I got there 15 minutes early, ordered a coffee, sat there tapping my fingernail against the cup, my stomach in knots. When he walked in, I could tell right away. He was tense. Hi, Mom. He kissed my cheek, but it felt formal, cold. Hi, sweetheart. I forced a smile. How was the trip? Great. Hawaii was beautiful. Silence. Heavy, awkward silence between a mother and son who used to talk about everything. Jason, we need to talk about what happened. He looked away. Mom, I know you're upset. Upset? I leaned in. Jason, you got married without me. You didn't even tell me you were going to do it. It all happened really fast. Fast? You were engaged for 3 months, Jason. 3 months. A couple of people turned to look. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to raise my voice. Just explain it to me. Why? He stirred his coffee in silence, eyes down. Brittany thought it would be better this way. Brittany thought. And what did you think? Mom, please. No, answer me. Was this your idea or hers? Finally, he looked at me, and in his eyes, I saw guilt. She said she wanted a small, intimate ceremony. Just the closest people. And I'm not one of the closest people? I'm your mother. That's not it. It's just... He hesitated. Mom, you know what people say about you. I leaned back like he'd just slapped me. So that's it. Your wife is ashamed of me. No, that's not. Jason, don't lie to me. I talked to her on the phone. She told me herself, I partied too much when I was young, and your wedding was only for respectable people. His face flushed red. She didn't mean it like that. Then how did she mean it? Mom, Brittany's family, they're very conservative. They've heard things about your marriages, the rumors. She was worried that I'd embarrass her. I finished the sentence for him, that her perfect little wedding would be ruined by a mother who's been divorced 3 times. Mom, it's more complicated than that. I looked at my son, the man I had raised alone, the man I gave everything to, and realized he had chosen this girl over me. "Jason, I need to ask you one question, and I want the truth." He nodded stiffly. "Do you love her? Really love her? Or are you just afraid of being alone?" His jaw tightened. "Of course I love her." "Why do you always have to make everything so difficult?" "Because I'm your mother, and I see what's happening. This girl is manipulating you." "Enough." His voice rose, and now everyone in the cafe was staring. "You don't know her. You've never even tried to know her." "I did try. I invited you both to dinner. Once, and you spent the whole night glaring at her like she was some kind of criminal, because I can feel she's not who she says she is. Or maybe you just can't stand the thought that I've found someone who makes me happy. Maybe the problem isn't her, Mom. Maybe the problem is you." Those words cut deeper than anything else. My son, the boy I raised alone, working 2 jobs, was accusing me of not wanting his happiness. "Jason, you know what? I came here hoping we could fix things, but if you can't accept my wife, maybe it's better if we keep our distance." He pushed back his chair and stood. "Wait." I grabbed his hand. "Don't leave like this. Please." He looked down at me, pain in his eyes, but also determination. "I love you, Mom. But Brittany is my family now. If you can't respect that, I don't know where we go from here." And then he walked out, leaving me alone with my cold coffee and a broken heart. I pulled out my phone and opened Brittany's Instagram. Dozens of photos from the wedding, the honeymoon, and comment after comment. Such a beautiful couple. Finally, true love. So jealous of your happiness. And under one picture of them on the beach, I saw her caption, "So grateful to have found a man from a good family. Finally, stability and love." From a good family, she meant Jason, despite his mother. I locked my phone and stared out the window. People rushing by, living their lives. And I sat there, realizing my daughter-in-law had declared war on me. But she had no idea who she was dealing with. Melissa Johnson survived 3 divorces, decades of gossip and judgment. I built a business from nothing. I raised a son on my own. Some girl embarrassed by her mother-in-law? She wasn't going to break me. But first, I had to find out who she really was and what she really wanted from my son. 3 weeks went by after that cafe meeting. 3 weeks during which Jason didn't call me. I didn't call him either. My pride wouldn't let me. But I watched Brittany's Instagram. Every day, every single day, she posted something new from their perfect life. Brittany at a fancy restaurant with a glass of champagne. Caption, "Celebrating life." Brittany with a Michael Kors bag. "Hubby knows how to spoil his princess." Brittany and Jason in front of a brand new gym. Starting a healthier life. Memberships at the best club in town. I knew Jason's salary. He was a manager at a logistics company. A solid job, but not the kind of paycheck that buys all that every week. One morning, my friend Diana came by my office with coffee and croissants. "So, any progress with Jason?" she asked, sitting down. "None. We're not talking." "Melissa, maybe you should make the first move. He's your son." I showed her Brittany's Instagram on my phone. "Look at this. New purchases every day, restaurants, spas. Where are they getting the money?" Diana scrolled through the pictures. Maybe her parents are rich. She told me her family was a normal one from Ohio. When I asked about her parents, she changed the subject fast. "You think she's lying?" "I don't think. I know she's lying. The question is about what and why." That night, I did something I hardly ever do. I Googled Brittany, found her Facebook, scrolled through old posts. 3 years ago, her photos looked nothing like this. Cheap clothes, selfies in a tiny apartment, posts about struggling to find a job. 2 years ago, things started to shift. Nicer clothes, restaurant photos, always with different men. A year ago, she already looked like a successful girl. Designer labels, expensive places, and that was when she met Jason. I sat back. The picture was forming, and it made my stomach turn. The next day, Robert, my accountant, came into my office. An older man, worked with me for 10 years. Reliable, honest, meticulous. "Mrs. Johnson, I need to discuss something with you." His tone told me it wasn't good. "What is it, Robert?" He put a stack of checks on my desk. "Yesterday, a young woman came by my office. Said she was your daughter-in-law, Brittany." My heart kicked. "And what did she want?" "She brought these checks. Said you agreed to cover their house rent while they get on their feet." I picked up the checks and looked at the amounts. $3,500 a month for rent. "And you paid them?" I asked. "Yes. She showed me photos of your son and said it was your wish to help the young family. I didn't think to question it." "Robert," I tried to keep my voice steady, though my blood was boiling, "I never authorized that." He went pale. "What?" "But she said—" "She lied." I stood up. "How many checks did you pay?" "2. This month and last. $7,000. $7,000. This girl had stolen $7,000 from me. "Call the bank. Now. Freeze any payments that weren't personally authorized by me." "Mrs. Johnson, I'm so sorry. I didn't know." "I know. It's not your fault I took the checks. But I will sort this out." When Robert left, I sat down and tried to calm myself. My hands shook with rage. So that was her plan. Brittany hadn't just married my son. She'd planned to use me as an ATM. I called Jason. No answer. I left a voicemail. "Jason, it's Mom. I need to talk to you urgently. Your wife is doing things you should know about. Call me back." He didn't call back. Not that day, not the next, not the day after. So I went to their house. I found the address on the checks. A big 3-story rental in a nice neighborhood with a manicured yard. $3,500 was about right for a place like that. I rang the bell. Brittany opened the door, dressed in a designer tracksuit. When she saw me, the smile dropped from her face. "Mrs. Johnson." "What a surprise. We need to talk. Now." She froze for a second, then put the sweet smile back on. "Of course. Come in." Inside, the place was furnished expensively. New furniture, a huge TV, designer light fixtures. "Is Jason home?" I asked. "He's at work." She sat on the couch, legs crossed. "What did you want to talk about?" I threw the checks down on the coffee table. "These." She didn't even look at them. "Oh, that. Yes, thanks for helping us. Very generous of you." "Generous?" I leaned forward. "I never offered to pay your rent." "Really?" She widened her eyes in mock surprise. "That's odd. I was sure Jason told me you wanted to help them get on their feet." "Don't lie to me." "Jason never said that. You came to my accountant and lied." The innocent mask slid off her face. Now she looked at me with cold calculation. "And what are you going to do about it? Complain to my husband? He'll believe me over you." "You sure about that?" "Absolutely." She leaned back. "You see, Mrs. Johnson, Jason loves me. And you, well, your reputation works in my favor." My blood boiled. "What do you mean?" I asked. "I mean, it's easy to convince a man his mother is the problem when that mother has a past like yours." She smiled. 3 husbands, rumors about being loose. He's half embarrassed by you already." I stood up. "You're manipulating my son." "I love your son." She rose too. "And I give him the life he deserves. A beautiful home, nice things, status, things you never could give him. With my money. With your money. The money you should have spent on him long ago. Didn't you raise him alone? Didn't you say you gave him your whole life? Then why not help him now?" Her logic was absurd. Steal money and call it help. "I will not pay your bills anymore." "We'll see." She walked me to the door and opened it. Jason will call you tonight, and we'll talk it through. Let's see who he believes, the mother who never accepted his wife, or the wife who only wanted him to be kinder to his mother. I left trembling with rage. She was cleverer than I'd thought. She'd already planted the seeds to turn Jason against me, and she was using my money to build a fake world of success. But she'd made one mistake. She underestimated me. I wasn't going to back down. I would find out who she really was and show my son the truth, even if he didn't believe me right away. That evening, Jason actually called. I was sitting in my living room with a glass of wine, staring out the window when the phone rang. "Mom, we need to talk." His voice was tight. "I need to talk to you too. Your wife." "Brittany told me you came to the house, that you accused her of stealing, so she'd already gotten to him. Jason, she took $7,000 from my account without my permission. She told me you offered to help us with rent. And you believed her over me?" Silence on the other end. "Mom, I don't know what to believe. You're both telling me different stories." "Fine. Let's deal in facts." I stood up, pacing the room. "Have I ever called you and said I'd pay your rent? Have we ever had a conversation about financial help at all?" "No." "Then where did Brittany get this idea?" "She said you told her directly. That you didn't want to embarrass me by bringing it up with me." I laughed bitterly. "And that didn't strike you as odd? That instead of talking to you, my son, I went behind your back to your wife who barely tolerates me?" He was quiet. "Look, maybe this was a misunderstanding. Maybe Brittany misunderstood you. Jason, I never spoke to her about this. She went to my accountant, lied, and he paid the checks. Then why would your accountant do it if it wasn't true? Because she showed him pictures of you, told him it was my instruction. Roberts worked with me for 10 years. He had no reason not to believe the owner's daughter-in-law. Mom, I don't want us fighting about money." "This isn't about money," my voice rose. "This is about your wife lying and manipulating." "Stop it." His voice rose too. "Stop blaming Brittany for everything. Maybe the problem is you. Maybe you just can't accept that I'm married. I would accept any woman who truly loved you. But this girl is using you. She loves me. Jason, open your eyes. Look at her Instagram. Every day it's new bags, new restaurants, new spas. Where's all that money coming from?" Silence. "Jason, Brittany finds discounts. Coupons." "Coupons? For Michael Kors? For $100 a plate restaurants? She has credit cards, well, with cash back." But his voice wavered. He was doubting her. "Son," I softened my tone, "I'm not trying to ruin your marriage. I just want you to be careful. There's something dishonest about that girl. Mom, I love her." "I know. But love isn't supposed to be blind." He sighed. "Look, I'll talk to Brittany. I'll figure out what happened with the checks. Maybe it really was a misunderstanding." "Good. Just talk to her and ask where the money for all those luxuries is coming from." When we hung up, I sank back into my chair. The conversation had gone better than I'd hoped. At least Jason agreed to question her. But I knew Brittany too well. She'd find a way out, spin some story, and Jason would believe her. I needed proof, hard, undeniable proof of who she really was. The next morning, I called Diana. "Remember your friend who's a private investigator?" "Sandra? Yeah, why?" "I need someone checked out." 2 days later, I met Sandra Mills, PI, mid-40s, sharp eyes, no-nonsense demeanor. "Diana said you want information on your daughter-in-law," she began, notebook in hand. I gave her everything I knew about Brittany: full name, age, supposed birthplace in Ohio. "What exactly do you want to know?" "Everything. Where she's from, who her parents are, where she worked before Jason, any debts, criminal record, anything." Sandra nodded, scribbling notes. "Understood. It'll take about a week, maybe 2. How much? $2,000 upfront plus expenses. I wrote the check without hesitation. If Brittany had stolen $7,000 from me, I could spend $2,000 to expose her. While Sandra worked, I kept watching Brittany's Instagram. Photos kept coming daily. But now I noticed the details. In the restaurant photo, just a glass of champagne, no food. With the bag, she was standing in a store, but no shopping bag. At the gym, dressed in workout gear by the entrance, but never inside. All those pictures were staged, every single one of them. She was building an illusion of a glamorous life for her followers. But why? 10 days later, Sandra called. "Mrs. Johnson, we need to meet, in person." From her tone, I knew the news would be interesting. We met at the same cafe. Sandra set a folder of documents down in front of me. Brittany Morgan, 31 years old, born in Akron, Ohio. I opened the folder and began to read. Father, Ray Morgan, factory mechanic, died 5 years ago of liver cirrhosis, an alcoholic. Mother, Janice Morgan, works as a cashier in a supermarket. So the family really had been poor. Brittany finished high school but never went to college. She worked as a waitress, a sales clerk, a receptionist, never stayed anywhere long. Sandra slid a few photos across the table. 3 years ago, she was with Brad Williams, a bank manager. They broke up a year later. He filed a police complaint accusing her of stealing $5,000 from his account. My pulse quickened. And what happened? He withdrew the complaint. Didn't want a scandal, but I spoke with him. He said Brittany convinced him to give her access to his account, claimed she'd use it to pay bills. Instead, she drained the money and disappeared. Exactly what I had suspected. After Brad, there were 2 more men, both well off. Both breakups, unusual, each one tied to money. Sandra handed me the final document. And this is the big one. Brittany has $30,000 in credit card debt. Collectors have been looking for her for 6 months. $30,000. That was the real reason she needed money. That was why she married my son. Thank you, Sandra. This is exactly what I needed. I drove home with the folder sitting on the passenger seat beside me. Proof, hard evidence, everything I needed to show Jason who his wife really was. But one question burned in my mind. How do I show him the truth? In a way he'll actually believe me. I sat at home with the folder of evidence, trying to figure out the best move. If I just called Jason and said, "Your wife's a con artist," he wouldn't believe me. Brittany had already poisoned him against me. I needed another approach. The next day, I called him. "Jason, I want to apologize," I began. "Apologize?" He sounded surprised. "Yes. Maybe I was too harsh with Brittany. Maybe the whole thing with the checks really was a misunderstanding. Mom, I'd like to invite you both to dinner. Friday, at my house. Let's start fresh." Silence. He hadn't expected that. "You're serious?" "Absolutely. Jason, you're my son. I want us to have a normal relationship, and if Brittany is part of your life now, then I have to accept that. Let me talk to her and call you back." An hour later, he did. Brittany says yes. Friday, 7 o'clock? Perfect. I'll make something special. On Friday, I cooked a real dinner. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, vegetables, apple pie for dessert. I set the table nicely, lit candles. The folder of evidence was tucked away in my desk drawer. My plan was to bring it out later, once things felt calmer. Jason and Brittany arrived exactly at 7. She wore an expensive dress and high heels, her hair perfectly styled, makeup flawless. "Mrs. Johnson, how kind of you to invite us," she said with a tight smile. "Please, call me Melissa. We're family now." Dinner went surprisingly smoothly. I didn't bring up money, no arguments. We talked about Jason's job, the weather, the news. Slowly, Brittany began to relax. She even started bragging. "You know, we just love our house. 3 bedrooms, a huge kitchen. Jason makes such a good living that we can afford a nice neighborhood." Jason flushed. Brittany, don't exaggerate. Oh, come on, honey, you work so hard. And you're getting that promotion soon, right? She painted a picture of their perfect life. The fancy gym, plans for a European vacation, the new car they'd be buying. I just nodded and listened. Jason looked more and more uncomfortable. He knew most of it wasn't true. After dessert, I leaned forward. You know, I'm glad we're all here together. There's something I'd like to discuss with both of you. What's that? Jason asked. Money. Brittany stiffened. I thought that misunderstanding was already cleared up, she said coldly. Almost. But I'd like to know exactly how it happened. I looked straight at her. Brittany, did you tell Robert that I personally offered to pay your rent? Yes, Jason told me. Jason, I turned to my son, did you ever tell Brittany I wanted to cover your rent? He shook his head. No, never. Brittany jumped in quickly. Maybe I misunderstood. You said your mother wanted to help us. I said she might give us financial advice, not money. Her face drained of color. Well, either way, I just thought it was normal to ask family for help. Asking is fine, I said calmly. Taking without permission is not. She shot up from her chair. I don't have to sit here and listen to accusations. Jason, we're leaving. Sit down, please. I stood too. We're not done. This conversation is over. Sit. Jason's voice was firm, sharper than I'd ever heard it. I want to hear what Mom has to say. Brittany slowly sat back down, her lips pressed tight. I went to the study and returned with the folder. You know, Brittany, after the whole check incident, I decided to look into you a little more. Here's what I found. I laid down the first document. Brad Williams, your boyfriend 3 years ago, a bank manager, filed a police report accusing you of stealing $5,000. Jason's eyes widened. What? That's a lie, Brittany shrieked. She hired some detective to dig up garbage about me. I pulled out the next document. Michael Thompson, dated you last year, wealthy businessman, broke up with you, also over money. And then I set down the final document. And this is the big one. $30,000 in credit card debt. Collectors have been after you for 6 months. Brittany went pale as death. Jason snatched the paper from my hand, scanning it. His face shifted from disbelief to shock, from shock to anger. Is this true? He whispered. Jason, I can explain. Is this true? His voice was sharp now, rising. She went silent. Then finally she nodded. Yes, I have debt. But I was going to pay it off, she blurted. On my money, I cut in. That's why you married him. That's why all those Instagram posts about your successful life. You were hiding from collectors and trying to find someone to cover your debts. Jason pushed back from the table, recoiling from his wife. You used me? All this time, he asked. No, Jason, I love you, Brittany cried. You love my money. More precisely, my mother's money. That's not true. Yes, I had problems, but I do love you. She reached for his hand. He pulled away. All those purchases, the restaurants, the social media posts. You were trying to look rich so nobody would find out the truth? He demanded. I just wanted us to have a normal life, she snapped. Normal? You lied to me from the beginning about your family, your past, everything. Brittany whirled on me, hatred in her eyes. Happy now? You ruined our marriage. Me? I laughed cold. Sweetheart, you ruined your marriage the moment you decided to marry my son for money. Jason, don't listen to her. She always hated me, Brittany pleaded. But Jason wasn't looking at her. He was staring at the documents in his hands. Get out, he said quietly. What? I said, leave. Get out of this house. Get out of my life. Jason, wait. I reached for him. Get out! He he screamed so loud the sound made Brittany flinch. She snatched her bag and ran from the house, slamming the door behind her. Jason sank slowly into his chair, still clutching the papers. His hands shook. "Mom," he said at last, voice cracking, "I'm sorry." "You were right. You tried to warn me and I wouldn't listen." I went to him and put my arms around him. "It's okay, sweetheart. The important thing is, you know now." He cried into my shoulder like a little boy, and I stroked his hair, feeling that bitter, satisfying taste of vindication. But this wasn't the end of my revenge. I had a plan. A plan to show Brittany and all her friends exactly who she really was. After that night, Jason moved back in with me for a few days. He needed time to think. Brittany called him every day, texting, begging for a chance to explain. He didn't answer. "Mom, I'm filing for divorce," he said one morning at breakfast. "I don't want anything to do with her." "I understand, sweetheart." He was quiet for a moment, then added, "You know what hurts the most? I actually loved her. Or I thought I did. She was just playing a part." I took his hand. "It's not your fault. She's a professional manipulator. You couldn't have known." But inside, I burned with fury. This girl hadn't only used my son. She'd insulted me, called me unfit for his wedding, stolen my money, and nearly destroyed the relationship between me and Jason. I wasn't about to let her walk away unpunished. A week later, Jason moved back into the rental. Brittany wasn't there. She'd gone to a friend's place. But her Instagram stayed active. And do you know what she did? She kept posting photos of their happy life. Old wedding pictures, honeymoon shots, staged home snaps with captions like, "Grateful for every day with my love," and "Family means everything." None of her followers knew the marriage was essentially over. I scrolled through her posts and noticed a pattern. The same people commented again and again. The friends from her wedding, her young circle. Each of them believed the fairy tale she'd built. The successful couple, the wealthy husband from a good family, the glamorous life. That's when the plan came to me. I called Jason. "Son, when is your wedding anniversary?" "In 3 weeks, the 20th. Why?" "I want to throw a party." "What, Mom? We're getting divorced." "Exactly. Listen, Brittany's been telling everyone how perfect your life is. How generous I am, how wonderful your marriage is. What if I throw a lavish party for your anniversary? Invite everyone who was at your wedding. Say I want to celebrate my son's first year of marriage." Jason was silent. "You want to humiliate her in public?" he asked. "I want to tell the truth in public. There's a difference." "Mom, I don't know. That's harsh. And stealing money, lying to people, and using my son. That's not harsh?" He sighed. "What's the plan?" I told him. At first, he resisted. Said it was too much, that he just wanted to forget and move on. But then I showed him a new post from Brittany. A photo of the two of them taken a month earlier with the caption, "My husband is my rock. So grateful for such a wonderful man and his lovely family. Her lovely family me. The woman she'd excluded from the wedding." "All right," Jason said finally, "let's do it." The next day, I called Brittany. "Mrs. Johnson?" She sounded surprised. "Brittany, I need to talk." "If this is about Jason, I don't want—" "It's about your anniversary." Silence. "I'm listening." "I want to throw a celebration. A big, beautiful party for your first year of marriage at my country house. I'll invite all your friends and relatives." "You're serious?" "Absolutely." "Look, I know we started on the wrong foot. Maybe I was too harsh. But Jason is my only son. If he's happy, I want to accept that." I heard her take a breath, weighing it. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes. Let's have a real celebration. Let's show everyone how happy your family is." The hook was set. "Now we wait." "I need to think," she said finally. "Of course." but decide fast. I need to book catering, music, decorations. 2 hours later, she called back. I'll do it. But on one condition. What condition? Jason has to be there, and he has to act like everything's fine between us. She still hoped to save the marriage, hoped a public event would make him change his mind. I'll talk to him, I promised. Jason agreed, reluctantly, but he agreed. Only for you, Mom. Only to show her and her friends the truth. For the next 3 weeks, I prepared. I rented my country estate, a large property with gardens I normally used for corporate events. I booked the best caterer, musicians, and top-notch decor. I sent invitations to everyone who'd been at their wedding, every friend from Brittany's Instagram, every relative I could find. Brittany gushed with delight. She posted photos of the invitations and theatrically wrote about reconciling with her mother-in-law. I, meanwhile, prepared my documents, the same evidence I'd shown Jason and more. Bank statements proving how she spent the stolen money, screenshots of messages with her ex-boyfriend Sandra had obtained, copies of unpaid rent notices. Everything was ready. Now it was only a matter of waiting for the party, the day when Brittany's facade would collapse in front of everyone she'd lied to, and I intended to savor every second. The day of the anniversary dawned warm and sunny, perfect weather for an outdoor celebration. I arrived at the estate early to oversee everything. White tents on the lawn, tables dressed in crisp linens, fresh flowers everywhere. The musicians tuned their instruments. The caterers prepared elegant dishes. Everything had to look flawless, luxurious, expensive, because the higher Brittany climbed, the harder her fall would be. Guests began arriving around 5. Young people dressed in their finest, relatives from Ohio, simple folks, clearly out of place in such extravagance. I greeted everyone with a smile, playing the part of the gracious hostess. Welcome. I'm so glad you could come celebrate Jason and Brittany's first anniversary. Brittany arrived at 6, draped in an expensive gown, hair and makeup flawless, jewelry sparkling. She looked like a movie star on the red carpet. Mrs. Johnson, this is incredible, she gushed, hugging me with fake enthusiasm. Thank you so much. Anything for family, I replied smoothly. Jason arrived separately, as we'd agreed. The moment Brittany spotted him, she rushed over, wrapping her arms around him, kissing him. He stood stiff, face like stone, but the guests didn't notice. All they saw was a happy couple, reunited for their anniversary. The party began. Music, champagne, laughter, dancing. Brittany basked in the spotlight. She told everyone what a wonderful mother-in-law I was, how grateful she was that we had finally found common ground. You know, we had our misunderstandings at first, she told a group of her friends, but Melissa is such a wise woman. She understood how deeply Jason and I love each other. Her friends nodded, eyes wide, envious of the wealth around them. God, Britt, you're so lucky. A rich husband, a generous mother-in-law, this house. I'm just grateful, Brittany replied, smiling modestly, though her eyes gleamed with triumph. I sipped my wine from across the room, watching her revel in the fantasy she'd created. Diana leaned in close. Are you sure you want to do this? She whispered. Maybe just let it go? No, I said flatly. She needs to be taught a lesson. At 8 o'clock, I asked the musicians to pause. I stepped into the center of the room with a microphone in hand. Friends, thank you all for being here tonight. I'd like to say a few words. The crowd fell silent, turning toward me. Brittany stood beside Jason, glowing with pride. She thought she was about to hear a touching speech about family and love. A year ago, my son Jason got married, and I wasn't at that wedding. Brittany's smile froze, then vanished. My daughter-in-law decided I wasn't good enough for their special day. You see, I've been divorced 3 times. I have a certain reputation, and Brittany didn't want me to ruin her perfect wedding in front of her friends. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Brittany's relatives shifted uncomfortably. But tonight, I continued, I've decided it's time to tell the truth. Not about my divorces, but about Brittany. Mrs. Johnson, what are you doing? Brittany gasped, pale as death. Showing everyone who you really are, dear. I reached under the table, pulled out the folder I'd hidden there, and began my speech. I opened the folder and pulled out the first document. Take a look around, I said, gesturing at the decorated garden, the food, the live musicians. All this luxury. Do you really think Jason and Brittany live like this every day? The guests were silent, not yet understanding where I was going. Let me show you something. I held up the first check. This is the rent for their house. $3,500 a month. And guess who's been paying it? Murmurs spread. Jason makes $4,500 a month, a decent salary for a logistics manager. But after taxes, rent, and basic expenses, there's not much left. I raised another document. And here's a bank statement from my account. See those two payments of $3,500? Brittany stole them. She lied to my accountant, telling him I'd offered to cover their rent. The guests began whispering. Brittany stood frozen, her face drained of color. Mrs. Johnson, stop this! She lunged for the microphone, but Jason caught her hand. No, Brittany, he said coldly. Let them hear it. I pressed on. Many of you follow Brittany's Instagram. Expensive restaurants, designer bags, gym memberships. Impressive, right? I held up printouts of her posts. But look closer. Here, champagne in a fancy restaurant, but no food. She ordered one drink, took a picture, and left. Here, posing with a Michael Kors bag in a store window, no shopping bag in sight, because she didn't buy it. And here, standing outside a gym in workout clothes, but never going inside. She doesn't even have a membership. Several of Brittany's friends gasped. All staged! Every photo carefully crafted to fake a life she doesn't have. I pulled out the detective's file. Let me tell you who Brittany really is. Brittany Morgan, 31, born in Akron, Ohio. Father, an alcoholic who drank himself to death. Mother, a cashier at a supermarket. Her relatives bowed their heads. There is no shame in coming from poverty, I said firmly. I grew up in a working-class neighborhood myself. But there is a difference between honest struggle and what Brittany has done. I lifted another page. 3 years ago, she dated Brad Williams, a bank manager, convinced him to give her access to his account to cover expenses. Instead, she stole $5,000 and disappeared. He filed a police report, then withdrew it to avoid scandal. The crowd erupted with shocked whispers. After Brad, there was Michael Thompson, a wealthy businessman. She lasted almost a year with him before he discovered she was using his money to cover her debts. He threw her out. And then there was David Richardson, another man she used, then abandoned. Brittany tried to slip away, but her friends blocked her path, demanding answers. And here's the crown jewel, I said, raising the last sheet. Brittany is drowning in $30,000 of credit card debt. Collection agencies have been chasing her for months, so she found a solution. Marry my son. Jason stood beside her, his face stone hard, eyes fixed forward. He works honestly. He earns what he has. He's a good man with a kind heart. That's why Brittany picked him, not out of love, but because he was easy prey. One of Brittany's friends stepped forward. Britt, is this true? You lied to us this whole time? Brittany kept her head down. Answer her, another shouted. You told us your family was wealthy, that Jason made a fortune, that everything was perfect. I just wanted a better life, Brittany whispered. At someone else's expense, I snapped. You lied, you stole, you manipulated. I held up one final paper. And this says it all. A full list of their expenses last month. Rent, $3,500, paid by me through deception. Electricity, $200, unpaid. Water, $120 a penny, unpaid. Internet, $80, unpaid. And what did Brittany spend money on instead? Luxury cosmetics, designer clothes, all on credit, all to keep up the illusion of success online. Gasps spread through the crowd. I turned to Brittany, her makeup now streaked with tears. You told me I wasn't good enough for your wedding, that I had lived too wildly in my youth, that your day was only for decent people. I stepped closer. Well, at least I've always been honest. Yes, I've had 3 marriages. Yes, I have a reputation, but I never stole. I never conned people who trusted me. I earned everything I had by myself, without using anyone. Then I faced the guests. And this woman, who thought herself better than me, is nothing but a fraud. She married my son, not for love, but for money. And she nearly succeeded. An older woman, one of Brittany's aunts, with tired eyes, approached me. Mrs. Johnson, I'm so ashamed. I'm her aunt. We always knew she wanted out of poverty, but we never thought she'd sink to this. I nodded at her gently. This isn't your fault, I told Brittany's aunt softly. Everyone makes their own choices. Brittany collapsed to her knees, sobbing. Jason, please. Forgive me. At first it was about the money, yes, but then I really did fall in love. Stop, Jason cut her off, his voice ice cold. Stop lying. You never loved me. You loved the money. My mother's money. He turned to the guests. I want everyone here to know this marriage is over. We're divorcing. Tonight isn't a celebration of our anniversary. It's a funeral for her lies. Brittany's friends began to leave, one after another. Some glared at her with fury. Others just shook their heads in disgust. I picked up the mic again. For those still here, food and drinks are paid for. Please enjoy yourselves. Think of it as my party, a celebration of the truth. I looked down at Brittany, still on her knees. Mascara streaked down her face. And as for you, dear, I leaned closer. You thought you could use me, steal from me, manipulate my son. You thought I was just some old woman with a bad reputation. But here's the thing. I didn't survive 63 years, 3 divorces, and decades of judgment just to be taken down by a petty con artist with credit cards and fake Instagram photos. I've lived through worse than you could ever imagine. And you're nothing but a girl playing dress-up in someone else's life. I straightened up and addressed the crowd. The lesson tonight is simple. Don't judge people by rumors. Don't believe everything you see on social media. And never, ever underestimate a woman you think is weak. The band struck up music again. Some guests stayed, whispering in shock but intrigued. Others left, unable to process what they'd witnessed. Brittany finally stood, keeping her eyes on the ground, and rushed out. The few relatives who remained followed silently behind her. Jason walked over and wrapped his arms around me. Thank you, Mom, for protecting me, for showing me the truth. Always, sweetheart. Always. Diana came up with a glass of champagne. Melissa, that was brutal, but fair. I took the glass, raised it high. To the truth, no matter how ugly it is. We clinked glasses, and I drank deep. Revenge was sweet, but sweeter still was knowing I had defended my son and exposed Brittany for who she really was. Her fake Instagram empire? Gone. Her reputation as a successful girl? Shattered. My son, finally free. The party continued, but with a different energy now. Guests debated what they'd just seen. Some judged me for being ruthless. Others said Brittany had it coming. And me? I didn't care. I'd done what needed to be done. And I had no regrets. The party dragged on, but the atmosphere had completely shifted. Guests huddled in small groups, whispering about what had just happened. Some looked at me with respect, others with judgment. I didn't care. Brittany had stormed out nearly an hour ago, in tears. Most of her friends left with her. The only ones who stayed were a few older relatives and some curious onlookers eager to see how the drama would end. Jason stood at the edge of the garden staring into the darkness. I walked over. "How are you holding up?" I asked softly. He shrugged without turning. "I don't even know what I feel. Relief, I guess, but also shame." Shame? For what? For being so blind, for letting her manipulate me, for not listening to you from the start. I placed a hand on his shoulder. You were in love. That's not a crime. She was a professional liar. He finally turned to face me. All those months. It was all fake. You know what hurts the most? I really believed we were happy. I believed her smile meant she loved me. Maybe she did, in her own way. As much as someone like her is capable of loving. He gave a bitter laugh. No, Mom. She loved money and the illusion of success. I was just her way to get it. Diana came over. "Melissa, most of the guests have left. Just a few stragglers finishing food. The party's basically over." I nodded. "Thank you for being here." "Always, friend." She glanced at Jason. "You hanging in there, kid?" "I'll survive," he said with a tight smile. After Diana left, Jason and I sat on a bench in the garden. The band packed up, waiters cleared tables. The night was winding down. "Mom, I need to say something," Jason began. "No, I'm listening." "I'm sorry. For everything. For not inviting you to the wedding. For letting Brittany badmouth you. For not believing you when you tried to warn me." His voice cracked. "You raised me alone. Worked 2 jobs. Gave me everything you could. And I chose her. A woman who humiliated my mother." Tears streamed down his cheeks. "Please forgive me, Mom." I hugged him, and he cried against my shoulder like he had when he was a boy. "There's nothing to forgive, sweetheart." "But I was such an idiot. You were in love. That's not the same thing." We sat quietly until he calmed down. Finally, he pulled back and wiped his eyes. "So what now?" "Now you file for divorce. You start fresh. You learn from this. And what if I can never trust anyone again?" "You will. You'll just be smarter. You'll judge people by actions, not words." He nodded slowly. "You know what people were saying tonight? That I'm a cruel old woman who humiliated her daughter-in-law in public?" I smirked. He laughed through the tears. "Some of them, yeah, but others said you were strong, that you protected your son the only way that would work. And what do you think?" He looked me straight in the eye. "I think you're the strongest woman I've ever known. And I'm lucky you're my mother." We embraced again, and warmth filled my chest. This moment was why I did it. Not for revenge, for my son. Suddenly, a young man approached us. "Sorry to bother you. My name's Marcus. I used to be Brittany's friend." "Yes?" I asked cautiously. "I just wanted to say thank you for exposing her." "Explain," Jason said. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "She borrowed $2,000 from me 6 months ago. Said her mom needed surgery. I believed her. We've been friends since high school, but she never paid me back. Then I watched her flaunt champagne and designer bags on Instagram. When I tried to bring up the debt, she dodged me." He pulled out his phone, showing screenshots. Brittany's excuses. "Sorry, not right now. I'll pay you soon, promise." All while posting glamorous photos. After tonight, I know I'll never see that money again. But at least now I know who she really is. He shook my hand. "You saved your son from going through what I did." "Too many," I said. And people like her don't change overnight. My phone rang. Sandra, the private investigator. Mrs. Johnson, sorry to call late. But you should know, Brittany just deleted her Instagram account. I chuckled. Of course she did. Her carefully crafted empire of lies had collapsed. Thank you, Sandra. And one more thing. Michael Thompson, one of her exes, contacted me. He heard I was digging into her past. He wants to talk to you. He's willing to testify in court if Jason decides to press fraud charges. I looked at my son. Jason, one of her exes, is ready to testify against her. If you want to take her to court. He was silent for a long moment. Then, no, I just want the divorce. I just want peace. Let her live with herself, if she even has a conscience. I relayed that to Sandra and hung up. The last guests trickled out. Staff packed up. The garden was empty except for us, sitting in the glow of lanterns. Let's go home, I said. To your place? Of course. My home has always been your home. We walked toward the car. That's when I saw movement in the shadows beneath the trees. Brittany. She stood there in the shadows, watching us. Makeup smeared, dress wrinkled, hair a tangled mess. Are you happy now? She screamed. You ruined my life. I stopped and met her eyes. No, dear. You ruined your own life. I just showed everyone the truth. You're a cruel, bitter old witch. You were jealous of me. I laughed. Jealous? Of you? A girl drowning in 30 grand of debt, living off lies? I built my business from scratch. I own my home, my car, I have savings. Tell me, what exactly do I have to envy? You've got nothing, she spat. You're just a lonely old woman everyone looks down on. Maybe, but at least I'm an honest, lonely woman. You're nothing but a liar and a thief, and now you've lost everything. Brittany stepped forward, fists clenched. I'll win him back. Jason will realize he made a mistake. Jason finally spoke. No, Brittany. The only mistake I made was marrying you. Tomorrow I'm filing for divorce, and I never want to see you again. She collapsed to her knees. Jason, please. I can change. I really love you. No, you only love yourself. We got into the car and drove away, leaving her crying in the darkness. On the way home, Jason stared out the window in silence, then finally said, Mom, promise me one thing. Anything. If I ever start dating someone shady again, hit me over the head and knock some sense into me. I laughed. Deal. At home, I brewed us both some tea. We sat in the kitchen, just like when he was a teenager coming to me with his problems. You know what I realized today? He asked. What? That reputation is just words. But family is action. Maybe you had a bad reputation, but you were always there when I needed you. He took my hand. And Brittany. She looked perfect on paper, but inside, she was rotten. Lesson learned, I said with a smile. We finished our tea and Jason went to sleep in his old room, the same room he'd grown up in. I stayed in the kitchen, replaying the day in my mind. Yes, I had humiliated Brittany in front of everyone. Yes, it was harsh. But sometimes the truth requires cruelty. She used my son. She stole from me. She humiliated me by banning me from his wedding. And now she had paid the price. I went to bed that night with a deep sense of satisfaction. Justice had been served, and my son was mine again.